What if you were taken from your homeland, carried away as a slave to a pagan empire, forced to change your name, your culture, your food, and your faith? This is the story of Daniel, the young man who chose to remain faithful to God even in the face of death, a story of courage, wisdom, miracles, and prophetic visions that reveal the future of humanity and the final triumph of God's kingdom. If you love the Scriptures and want to learn from the examples of the great men of faith, subscribe to the channel now, and comment below which other Bible story you would like to hear next. He was taken from his homeland, given a pagan name, and lived in the palace of an idolatrous king, surrounded by temptations and threats of death. But even so, he never stopped praying, never bowed to men, and witnessed with his own eyes the hand of God changing history. This is the journey of Daniel, the faithful young man who faced lions, kings, and empires, and came out victorious because he stood firm. The story of Daniel, the faithful young man in Babylon. Part 1. The year was 605 BC. The Babylonian Empire, led by King Nebuchadnezzar, marched against Judah and conquered Jerusalem, beginning a time of exile and sorrow for the people of God. Among the prisoners taken to Babylon were young men from the nobility of Jerusalem, sons of royal and influential families, chosen for their appearance, intelligence, and ability to learn. The goal was to train them in the customs, language, and culture of the Chaldeans so they could serve in the king's palace. Among them were 4 young men who would never abandon their faith. Their names were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, firm believers in the God of Israel, even far from home, even in a foreign land. As soon as they arrived, the Babylonians changed their names as a way to erase their identity and their connection to the true God. Daniel was renamed Belteshazzar, Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, and Azariah was given the name Abednego, all with references to Babylonian pagan gods. They were enrolled in a 3-year training program where they would study the sciences, astrology, language, and traditions of the Chaldeans, and would also receive daily the royal delicacies and wine from the king's table. But Daniel made a decision. He purposed in his heart not to defile himself with the king's food or the wine he was served, because he knew those items had been offered to idols and violated the principles of God's law. With wisdom and respect, Daniel asked the chief of the eunuchs to let them eat only vegetables and drink water for 10 days. A test of faithfulness and trust in the Lord. God gave Daniel favor in the eyes of that man, and the request was granted. At the end of the 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier, stronger, and more robust than all the other young men who ate the king's food. And it wasn't just in appearance that they stood out. God gave the 4 young men wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in all literature and science, and to Daniel, a special gift, the ability to understand visions and dreams. When they were presented to King Nebuchadnezzar, he found them 10 times wiser than all the magicians and enchanters in his kingdom. Thus began Daniel's journey in a foreign land, a walk marked by faithfulness, courage, and the mighty hand of God upon his life. Even in the midst of oppression under a pagan empire, Daniel remained faithful, and because of that faithfulness, God began to exalt him and use him powerfully as an instrument of revelation and justice. The dream of the statue and the eternal kingdom. Part 2. Sometime later, King Nebuchadnezzar had a troubling dream, so disturbing that he lost sleep. His spirit was agitated, and he could find no rest. He then commanded that his magicians, enchanters, and astrologers not only interpret the dream, but also reveal what the dream was. For he refused to tell it, saying that if they were truly wise, they should know what he had dreamed. Faced with the impossibility, the wise men admitted that no one on earth could do such a thing, and that only the gods who do not live among men could reveal this mystery. The response enraged the king, who ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon, including Daniel and his companions. Upon hearing of the decree, Daniel acted with prudence and wisdom. He asked the king for time and returned home, where he met with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah together. They sought God with fervor, asking for mercy and revelation. During the night, God revealed to Daniel in a vision the content and meaning of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven, acknowledging that he is the one who changes times and seasons, removes kings and sets up kings, gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. The next morning, Daniel was brought before the king, and with humility he declared that no man could reveal the dream, but that there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he chose to show the king what will happen in the last days. Daniel then described the dream with precision. The king had seen a great statue of impressive appearance, with a head of pure gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet partly of iron and partly of clay. As the king watched, a stone was cut out without human hands. It struck the statue's feet and shattered them. The entire statue was destroyed, turned to dust, and the wind carried it all away. But the stone grew and became a great mountain that filled the whole earth. Daniel explained that the statue represented kingdoms that would rise on earth, starting with the Babylonian Empire, the gold, followed by succeeding kingdoms, each inferior to the former, until a divided and weakened kingdom would arise, symbolized by the iron and clay. But in the time of those kings, God would raise up an eternal kingdom, represented by the stone cut without hands, a kingdom that would never be destroyed, and that would consume all previous kingdoms, standing firm forever. Upon hearing these words, King Nebuchadnezzar was amazed. He fell face down before Daniel and honored him, recognizing that Daniel's God was truly the God of gods, the Lord of kings, the only one able to reveal deep mysteries. Daniel was then greatly exalted. He received many gifts and was appointed governor over the entire province of Babylon, becoming also the chief of all the kingdom's wise men. At Daniel's request, the king also appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to positions of authority, showing that the faith and prayer of those young men changed the destiny of an entire nation. And so, in the midst of a pagan culture, the glory of the living God was exalted, and the stone that shattered the kingdoms of the earth began to announce the arrival of God's eternal kingdom. The fiery furnace and unshakable faith. Part 3. Sometime later, King Nebuchadnezzar ordered the construction of a massive golden statue, nearly 30 meters tall, set up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He commanded that all governors, prefects, judges, treasurers, counselors, and officials come to the dedication of the image, and a herald proclaimed in a loud voice that at the sound of trumpets, flutes, harps, and all kinds of music, everyone must bow down and worship the golden statue that the king had set up. Those who refused would be immediately thrown into a blazing, fiery furnace. Without right to defense or mercy, when the sound echoed, crowds bowed before the image. But 3 men remained standing among thousands kneeling. They were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's friends, faithful Jews who refused to worship any god but the Lord. Some Chaldeans, jealous and watchful, ran to accuse the 3 young men before the king, reminding him of the decree and accusing them of disobeying his order. Furious, Nebuchadnezzar summoned them and gave them a second chance, saying that if they did not bow before the statue, they would be thrown immediately into the furnace, and mocked them by asking which god could deliver them from his hand. But the 3 answered with courage and faith, saying, "O king, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the furnace, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us. But even if he does not, know that we will not worship your statue nor serve your gods." The answer filled the king with rage. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded the strongest soldiers to bind the 3 men and throw them into the fire. The flames were so intense that they killed the soldiers who approached the furnace, but inside, something supernatural happened. Suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar stood up in astonishment and asked his counselors, "Weren't 3 men bound and thrown into the fire? Why then do I see 4 men walking freely in the furnace, unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods?" The king approached the entrance of the furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." They came out of the fire without a single burn, not even a hair singed, not even the smell of smoke on them. A clear miracle before all of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar then proclaimed, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants. They trusted in him, disobeyed the king, and chose to die rather than worship any other god but their own. Because of this, the king issued a new decree, forbidding anyone to speak against the God of those men, under penalty of death. For, as he himself said, there is no other God who can save in this way. And so, God was glorified among the nations, and the faithful were honored for their unshakable courage in the face of the fire." The pride of Nebuchadnezzar and the humbling of the king. Part 4. After all the signs and wonders he had witnessed, King Nebuchadnezzar wrote a letter to all peoples, nations, and languages of the earth, exalting the Most High God, saying that the Lord's signs were great, and his deeds mighty. But even with all he had seen, pride still ruled the king's heart, and that was when God decided to deal with him directly. One night, Nebuchadnezzar had a new dream. He saw a huge tree whose top reached the sky and was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruits abundant, and all living beings fed from it. But suddenly, a watcher, an angel sent from heaven, cried out loudly, saying, "Cut down the tree, strip its branches, scatter its fruit, leave only the stump bound with iron and bronze chains, and let the heart of this man be changed to that of an animal, until 7 times pass over him." Frightened by the vision, the king summoned all the wise men, but none could interpret it. So Daniel was called, and upon hearing the dream, he remained silent, troubled for a few moments, for he knew the revelation was severe. Then Daniel explained, "The tree is you, O king. You have grown great and become powerful. Your majesty has reached to the heavens, and your dominion to the ends of the earth. But because of your pride, you will be brought down. You will be driven away from among men. You will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like oxen, and your mind will be like that of a beast, until you recognize that the Most High is the one who rules over the kingdoms of men, and he gives power to whomever he wills." Daniel pleaded with the king to repent, to turn away from his sins and practice righteousness, so that this judgment might be avoided. But 12 months later, as the king walked on the rooftop of his palace in Babylon, he said in his heart, "Is this not the great Babylon that I have, built by my mighty power, for the glory of my majesty?" While the words were still on his lips, a voice came from heaven, saying, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, your kingdom has been taken from you. You will be cast out among the animals, and you will live like one of them until you acknowledge that the Most High rules over all." At that very moment, the word was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar went mad. He lived in the fields. His appearance deteriorated. His hair grew like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. For 7 times he lived as an animal, without honor, without power, without human understanding, until one day he lifted his eyes to heaven, and his reason returned. Then he praised the God of heaven, recognizing that his authority is eternal. His dominion is from generation to generation, and that all the inhabitants of the earth are as nothing before him, for he does as he pleases, and no one can resist his hand. With that, His kingdom was restored to him. His honor and majesty were returned, and he was made even greater than before. Then Nebuchadnezzar declared, "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of heaven, for all his works are true, and his ways are just, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride." The writing on the wall and the fall of an empire. Part 5. Many years passed, and now the king of Babylon was Belshazzar, son or descendant of Nabonidus, the last of the royal line. He ruled with arrogance, without fear of the God of Israel. Even though he knew the whole story of Nebuchadnezzar, one night Belshazzar held a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles. Filled with wine, luxury, and excess, at the height of the feast, he ordered that the sacred utensils from the temple of Jerusalem be brought in, which Nebuchadnezzar had taken when he destroyed the temple of the Lord, with the consecrated cups. They drank wine, toasted, and worshipped gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, mocking the true God in front of everyone. Then something terrifying happened. Suddenly, a mysterious hand appeared without a body and began writing with its finger on the wall of the palace, right near the lampstand, where everyone could see. The king's face turned pale, his knees trembled, and he was paralyzed with fear. He shouted for his magicians, enchanters, and diviners, promising royal robes, gold chains, and the third highest position in the kingdom to whoever could interpret the writing. But none of them could decipher the words on the wall, and panic overtook the hall. Then the queen mother entered, reminding the king of a man who had served Nebuchadnezzar with wisdom, Daniel, who had within him the spirit of the holy gods, and who was able to interpret dreams and solve mysteries. Daniel was summoned, and Belshazzar promised him gifts, riches, and honor if he could interpret the message. But Daniel refused the rewards and said he would give the interpretation anyway. Before revealing the meaning, Daniel reminded the king of the story of Nebuchadnezzar, who had been exalted but was humbled because of his pride, until he recognized that God is the one who rules over all. Daniel then rebuked Belshazzar, saying that he knew all this, but still did not humble himself. On the contrary, he dishonored the God of heaven by using the sacred utensils to praise idols, while failing to glorify the Lord who holds his life. Breath in his hands, then Daniel read the writing on the wall. The words were Mene, Min, Tekel, Parsin, and he explained Min. God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales, and found wanting. Parsin, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. That very night, while Daniel's words still echoed, the judgment was fulfilled. The armies of the Medo-Persian Empire, led by Cyrus, invaded Babylon in an unexpected and silent attack. King Belshazzar was killed, and the Babylonian Empire fell before the eyes of the world. Thus the word of the Lord was fulfilled. The kingdom of men passed away, but the kingdom of God endures forever. The lion's den and divine deliverance. Part 6. With the fall of Babylon, a new empire arose, the Medo-Persian Empire, and Darius the Mede took the throne with authority and wisdom, organizing the kingdom into 120 provinces, governed by satraps, and over them 3 high officials supervised everything. Among these 3 was Daniel. Even in his old age, Daniel stood out for his excellence, faithfulness, and excellent spirit, so much so that the king himself considered placing him over the entire kingdom, above all the other officials. But this stirred envy and hatred among the other governors and satraps, who searched for reasons to accuse him. They scrutinized his life, his administrative duties, his records, but found nothing, for Daniel was upright, honest, and blameless. Then they concluded that they could only bring him down by using his own faith against him. They gathered and went to the king. With flattery and deceit, they suggested that Darius issue a royal decree, ordering that for 30 days no one should pray to any god or man except the king himself, under penalty of being thrown into the lion's den. The king, unaware of the trap, signed the decree and sealed it with the royal seal, making it irrevocable according to the laws of the Medes and Persians. When Daniel learned of the new law, he did not hesitate. He went to his house, opened the windows of his room facing Jerusalem, knelt down, and prayed to God, as he always did. 3 times a day, his enemies caught him praying and rushed to report him to the king, reminding him of the decree and demanding that Daniel be thrown into the lion's den. Darius was distressed, for he loved and respected Daniel. He tried to find a way to save him, but he could not revoke the law. At sunset, with a heavy heart, the king ordered that Daniel be thrown into the den, but before said, "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." A stone was placed over the mouth of the den and sealed with the king's ring, and Darius returned to the palace. But he could not sleep. He did not eat, nor enjoy music. He spent the night fasting and in anguish. At dawn, he got up and ran to the den, called out with a sad voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you serve continually, able to deliver you from the lions?" Then, from within the den, a voice replied, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They did not harm me, because I was found innocent before him and also before you." The king was overjoyed and ordered Daniel to be taken out of the den, and no injury was found on him, because he had trusted in God. Then the men who had accused Daniel were thrown into the same den, and before they reached the ground, the lions overpowered and crushed them, showing that Daniel's deliverance was truly divine. Then King Darius wrote to all peoples, nations, and languages of the earth, proclaiming that all must fear and reverence the God of Daniel, for he is the living God who endures forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall have no end. He delivers, he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. It was he who rescued Daniel from the eye, power of the lions. And so Daniel prospered during the days of Darius, and also under the reign of Cyrus the Persian. His unwavering faith, his integrity, and his commitment to God remained steadfast, even in the face of the greatest threats. And to this day, his story continues to inspire generations to trust in a God who reigns over all kingdoms and delivers those who wait on him. The vision of the 4 beasts and the kingdom of the Son of Man. Part 7. In the first year of King Belshazzar's reign, before the final fall of Babylon, Daniel had a dream during the night, a deep and symbolic prophetic vision, recorded in detail, unlike anything he had ever experienced. While sleeping, he saw the 4 winds of heaven stirring up the great sea, and from the tumultuous waters rose 4 great beasts, each different from the other, representing kingdoms that would rule the earth, powerful, fierce, and proud. The first was like a lion, but had the wings of an eagle. As Daniel watched, its wings were torn off. It was lifted from the ground, stood on 2 feet like a man, and was given the heart of a man. The second beast looked like a bear, raised up on one side, with 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And it was told, "Arise, devour much flesh." The third was like a leopard, with 4 bird wings on its back and 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this came a 4th beast, dreadful, terrifying, and exceedingly strong. With large iron teeth, it devoured and crushed its victims, and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the beasts before it, and it had 10 horns. As Daniel watched the horns, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This little horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking arrogantly. Then Daniel saw thrones being set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were blazing fire. A river of fire flowed, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands served him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Daniel kept watching, while the little horn continued to speak arrogantly, until the fourth beast was slain, its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. Then Daniel saw someone like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and languages worshipped him. His dominion is everlasting and will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. Daniel was deeply troubled by the visions. His spirit was distressed, and he approached one of those standing in the vision and asked for the interpretation. And it was told to him that the 4 great beasts represented 4 kingdoms that would arise on the earth, but the saints of the Most High would receive the kingdom and possess it forever and ever. The 4th beast would be a terrible kingdom that would devour the earth, and the 10 horns represented 10 kings, and after them another king would arise, different from the former ones. He would subdue 3 kings, speak against the Most High, oppress his saints, and try to change the set times and laws, and the saints would be handed over to him for a time, times and half a time, but the court would sit, and his power would be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the kingdom, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under heaven would be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom will be everlasting, and all rulers will worship and obey him. With this, Daniel ends the vision, saying that his thoughts greatly alarmed him. His face turned pale, but he kept the matter in his heart. This vision revealed not only the future of human history, but the eternal plan of God to establish the kingdom of Christ over all the earth. The vision of the ram and the goat. Part 8. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, Daniel had another vision, a clear and detailed revelation about future kingdoms. And once again, God opened his servant's eyes to see the events that would come upon the earth. In the vision, Daniel saw himself by the Ulai River, in the citadel of Susa, in the province of Elam, and there he saw a ram with 2 large horns, one higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. The ram charged westward, northward, and southward, and no animal could stand against it, nor was there anyone who could deliver from its power. It did as it pleased and became great, while Daniel was observing. A goat appeared, coming from the west, so fast that its feet barely touched the ground. This goat had a prominent horn between its eyes, and with fury it ran toward the ram with the 2 horns. The goat attacked with great rage, struck the ram, broke both its horns, and threw it to the ground, and no one could rescue it. After the victory, the goat became exceedingly great, but at the height of its power, the large horn was broken, and in its place 4 notable horns arose, pointing toward the 4 winds of the earth. Out of one of those 4 horns came a small horn, which grew greatly toward the south, the east, and the beautiful land. It grew up to the host of heaven, cast down some of the stars, and trampled them. It exalted itself as high as the prince of the host, took away the daily sacrifice, and desecrated the sanctuary. Truth was cast down to the ground, and this little horn prospered. Then Daniel heard a holy one speaking to another, asking, "How long will this vision last?" And the answer was, "For 2,300 days. Then the sanctuary shall be cleansed." Daniel was deeply troubled by the vision, and as he tried to understand, someone with the appearance of a man appeared before him, and a voice ordered, "Gabriel, make this man understand the vision." Then the angel Gabriel came near Daniel and said that the vision referred to the time of the end, and he began to explain. The ram with 2 horns represented the kings of Media and Persia. The goat was the king of Greece, and a large horn between its eyes was the first king. After its fall, the 4 horns represented the 4 kingdoms that would arise from his nation. But not with the same power. The little horn was a fierce king, with a stern face, cunning, who would rise at the end of these kingdoms. He would destroy the mighty and even the holy people. He would prosper through deceit, exalt himself, and destroy many in times of peace. He would rise against the Prince of Princes, but would be broken without human hand. Gabriel concluded by saying that the vision was true, but it should be sealed, for it referred to days yet to come. Upon hearing all this, Daniel fainted and was sick for many days. Such was the spiritual and emotional weight of that revelation. Afterward, he rose and went back to his duties in the palace, but remained deeply impacted and did not fully understand the vision. This prophecy, with impressive accuracy, foretold the rise and fall of the Medo-Persian and Greek empires, and foreshadowed the rise of wicked leaders, like Antiochus Epiphanes, a prophetic symbol of the Antichrist, pointing to a time of intense persecution, desecration, and resistance. But it also brought hope, revealing that in the end, evil would be destroyed, and the dominion of the Holy One, the Prince of Princes, would triumph forever. The prophecy of the 70 weeks. Part 9. In the first year of the reign of Darius, son of Ahasuerus, of the lineage of the Medes, Daniel, now older, reading the books of the prophet Jeremiah, understood that the time of Jerusalem's captivity was coming to an end. It would be 70 years of desolation upon the holy city. Faced with this revelation, Daniel humbled himself deeply, fasted, wore sackcloth, and covered himself with ashes, and turned his face to God with prayer and supplication, acknowledging the sins of his people, confessing the justice of God, and pleading for forgiveness, restoration, and mercy. His prayer was intense, sincere, and full of repentance. He cried out, "Lord, we have sinned, acted wickedly, turned away from your commandments. But you are righteous in all you do, for the sake of your name, Lord. Do not reject your city nor your people." While he was still praying, confessing, and interceding, the angel Gabriel came quickly to him, sent by God, to bring one of the most impressive and precise revelations in all of Scripture. Gabriel told Daniel that he was greatly beloved in heaven, and for that reason a prophetic word had been given to him, deep and powerful. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Gabriel explained that, from the issuing of the decree, to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the appearance of the Messiah, the Prince, there, would be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. That is, a total of 69 prophetic weeks. Each week represented 7 years, totaling 483 years until the coming of the Anointed One. And after that, said the angel, the Messiah would be cut off, but not for himself. And a people of a prince would come who would destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end would come with a flood. And until the end, there would be war and desolations determined in the last week or the final 7 years. A prince will make a firm covenant with many, but in the middle of the week, he will bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations will come the desolator, until the final judgment is poured out upon him. This vision pointed to God's redemptive plan, with impressive details about the coming of the Messiah, his death, the period of rejection, the destruction of Jerusalem, and the final events of the end time. Daniel received this prophecy in a time of humility and crying out, showing that the greatest secrets of God are revealed to hearts that are broken and full of reverence. The prophecy of the 70 weeks not only confirmed God's plan for his people, but also revealed the heavenly timeline of redemption, leading all things to their final fulfillment in Christ. The Prince who would come would die and will reign forever. The Vision of the Glorious Man and the Invisible Battle, Part 10. In the 3rd year of the reign of Cyrus, king of Persia, Daniel had a new vision, deep and intense, revealing not only future events, but also spiritual realities invisible to human eyes. For 3 weeks, Daniel abstained from pleasant food, meat, and wine, did not anoint himself with oil, and dedicated himself completely to prayer and fasting, afflicted by the fate of his people and the previous revelations that had left him anguished. At the end of the 21 days, he was by the Tigris River when he looked up and saw something extraordinary. A man dressed in linen, with a belt of pure gold from Uphaz around his waist. His body shone like beryl. His face had the appearance of lightning, his eyes like flaming torches. His arms and feet gleamed like polished bronze, and the sound of his voice was like the roar of a multitude. Although he was accompanied by other men, only Daniel saw the vision. Those who were with him fled in terror, and he was left alone, weakened, with no strength, his face to the ground, astonished by the heavenly glory. But the glorious being touched him and said, "Daniel, man greatly loved, stand on your feet, for I have been sent to you from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God. Your words were heard, and because of them I have come." The heavenly messenger revealed something surprising. He had been delayed for 21 days by the prince of the kingdom of Persia, a spiritual being representing evil forces, and only with the help of Michael, one of the most powerful princes of heaven, was he able to reach Daniel. This revelation showed that behind human empires there was an intense spiritual battle, fought between angels and principalities, between the forces of God and the powers of darkness. The angel told Daniel that he had come to reveal what would happen to his people in the last days, and that after finishing his message, he would return to fight against the prince of Persia, and later face the prince of Greece. Announcing that spiritual conflicts would continue behind the scenes of history, Daniel fell to the ground without strength. But the messenger touched him again, strengthened him, and said, "Do not fear. Man greatly loved, peace be with you. Be strong, yes, be strong." And Daniel was strengthened and listened attentively to every word of the revelation to come, knowing that what would follow was not only about kingdoms and wars, but about the fulfillment of God's eternal plans, which move even in the invisible backstage of the spiritual world. This vision not only prepared Daniel for future prophecies, but revealed that every prayer, every fast, every cry before God moves battles that our eyes cannot see, and that heaven responds to those who stand in faith, humility, and reverence. Wars between kings and the rise of the arrogant. Part 11. Following the vision he had received, the angel continued speaking with Daniel, revealing in rich detail a series of events that would involve the future of kings, empires, and wars, all recorded in chapter 11 as one of the most precise prophecies in biblical history. The angel declared that since the days of King Darius the Mede, 3 more kings would rise in Persia, followed by a 4th who would be much richer and more powerful, and would stir up the wrath of Greece against his rule. This king would be succeeded by a great Greek conqueror who would rule with great strength, but whose kingdom would be quickly divided into 4 parts after his death. This was Alexander the Great and his generals who divided the Greek Empire. Among themselves, from the 4 kingdoms would rise 2 that would directly oppose each other. The kingdom of the south, based in Egypt, and the kingdom of the north, centered in Syria, known respectively as the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. For centuries, these 2 kingdoms would wage successive wars, treacherous alliances, political marriages, traps and betrayals, in a complex narrative that the prophecy describes with frightening accuracy. A daughter of the king of the south would marry the king of the north, but the alliance would fail. Troops would invade, fortresses would fall, kings would be betrayed by their own allies, and nations would be dragged into the middle. of the conflict. The prophecy then begins to focus on a king of the north who would stand out for his arrogance, cunning, and violence. He would rise against the glorious land, persecute the holy people, and profane the temple of God. This king, historically identified as Antiochus Epiphanes, is also a prophetic figure of the Antichrist, for he would exalt himself against everything sacred, speak against the God of gods, and introduce into the temple the abomination of desolation, an act of extreme blasphemy. He would bring an end to the daily sacrifice, deceive many with smooth words, but those who know their God would stand firm. And among them would arise martyrs who would fall by the sword, by fire, by exile, and by disgrace. Even so, the prophecy states that God would allow this time of trial to refine, purify, and strengthen those who belong to him until the appointed time comes to an end. In the final verses, the focus shifts to a king who would exalt himself above all, worship strength and military power, reject the gods of his ancestors, and rule with brutality, conquering many territories, including Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. But at the height of his power, news from the east and the north would alarm him, and he would go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many, until he meets his end with no one to help him. This final figure of the prophecy points directly to the Antichrist of the end times, who will rise up in fury against God and against the holy people, but who will be destroyed by the Lord himself at the appointed time. Daniel listened to everything attentively, and even without understanding all the details, he knew that these words were true, determined, and certain, that the kingdoms of men pass away, but the kingdom of the Most High remains firm, unshakable, eternal. The time of the end and the eternal resurrection. Part 12. As the angel finished his revelation, Daniel heard solemn and mysterious words about the last days, a time that would come upon the earth like never before, a time of unprecedented anguish, reserved for the end of all things. The angel Michael, the great prince who protects the people of God, would rise in this final time, marking the beginning of intense tribulations, relentless persecutions, and a deep purification upon the saints. But amid the affliction, hope would also come. For it is written that all who are found written in the book would be delivered. And then, what had never been announced so clearly was revealed before Daniel. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will rise, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. The angel then instructed Daniel to seal these words until the time of the end, for many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Daniel then saw two other celestial beings, one on each side of the river, and one of them asked, "How long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be?" And the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, lifted his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, saying that all this would last for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, then all these things shall be finished. Daniel heard, but did not understand, and asked, "My Lord, what shall be the end of these things?" And he was told, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white, and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly. And none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." And then the angel mentioned that from the time the daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days, and blessed is he who waits, and comes to the 1,335 days. But as for you, Daniel, the final word was filled with peace and promise. But you go your way till the end, rest, and at the end of the days you shall rise to receive your inheritance. With this, the revelation given to Daniel ends. The man who prayed, fasted, dreamed, and saw what many never imagined, he lived in the midst of powerful empires, but served the kingdom that shall never be shaken. And his faithfulness, his holiness, and his love for God led him to the greatest visions a man could receive. Visions that transcend the centuries and remind us that the end is near, but the victory belongs to the Lamb and to those who trust in him. The final message of Daniel's story. The story of Daniel is not just an account of ancient events, but a living revelation of the character of God, the power of faithfulness, and the certainty of the fulfillment of eternal promises. Daniel was taken from his land, carried captive by pagan kings, surrounded by pressure, persecution, and temptation. But he never bowed to idolatry, never exchanged his faith for comfort, and never stopped praying, even when it could cost him his life. God honored each of those choices, protected him in the furnace of affliction, delivered him from the pit of persecution, and exalted him before kings and empires. But more than that, he revealed to him what many desired to see, the divine plan from the fall to the end, and the glory of the kingdom that will never pass away. Daniel's visions span the centuries, and still today speak to those who are willing to consecrate themselves, to seek understanding, to live in holiness in the midst of a corrupted world. Because the true focus of the book of Daniel is not on the lions, the kingdoms, the statues, or the beasts. The focus is on the God who reigns above all, who reveals mysteries, who delivers his people, and who has prepared an eternal kingdom for those who remain faithful until the end. May your life, like Daniel's, be marked by prayer, courage, integrity, and hope, for those who know their God will be strong and do great exploits. And at the right time, like Daniel, you too will rise to receive your inheritance in the kingdom. That will never end. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel right now, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and comment below which other Bible story you would like to see here. Your participation is very important for the word to keep reaching more lives.